One of the things about looking at behavioural mirroring is usually the people around us that annoy us the most, they're the ones that we have the biggest opportunity to learn from. There's a bit of a dilemma here because most of us have to go through a process, but most of us are in this part where we don't want to acknowledge that we have any issues. When things go wrong or conflict occurs, it's not our fault. So behavioural mirroring is about acknowledging the things in other people, their behaviour, their patterns, their attitudes that really annoy you, the things that really tick you off, because what happens is they're actually mirroring behaviour that you recognise within yourself but maybe do not want to acknowledge. So they're a great learning opportunity. If we can pause, take a breath and actually look at that behaviour for what it is rather than get stuck in the emotional issue at the time, but look at what triggers our dislike of the behaviour, there's a lot for us to learn there.
How do we first go about identifying what the behaviour is?
Well, it's looking at the people around you. Is it the person that sits across from you at the table and, they've got the loud, annoying voice and they're always joking and they're always interrupting your thoughts? Or is it the other person that when you're trying to have a conversation with them, they're too busy texting on their phone and they're not giving you their full attention? Whatever the little quirks are that get to you, if you can identify what it is specifically that annoys you about a person, they're the things that you need to start identifying with yourself. Now, these can be issues that could be, way back from childhood or through different experiences that you've had in your life that you may have not acknowledged consciously. But just by identifying those quirks in people's behaviour that really gets to you, usually signifies that that's an issue that you have to deal with on a personal level.
Now, I suppose this works in the positive as well, where the people you surround yourself with who you actually like.
Absolutely. Think about the people when you're around them. You're laughing, you're smiling, you're relaxed, you're joking, you really love their company. That mirrors the good things about yourself. So like attracts like. So look at the people around you in your closest circle that you choose to be with and look at the things, the attributes about them that you really love. And that's genuinely what you give out. Usually you're the mirror for them and vice versa. So it does work two ways and it has got the positive aspects and the challenging aspects of our personality and our behaviours.
All right, so once we've identified these traits, what's the first step in resolving them within ourselves and maybe trying to overcome those behaviours?
The very first step is acknowledgement. It's the hardest step, it's the biggest step, but once you acknowledge it, it just all rolls into itself. It's taking that quiet time, and this is not something necessarily that you talk about or you share with other people until you're comfortable with it, but it's about self-reflection. It's, finding that quiet time in your head going, why does that person annoy me? And then identifying what it is that you have in similar. I watch, within different people that I work with, and especially when I'm working with partners that are related or married, and I can see the conflict in them, but I can see such similarities. My best friend and my husband have a love-hate relationship, funnily enough. They really like each other, but there's a lot about each other that annoys them. And when I stop and actually look at it, it's because they're so much alike. It's incredible. So what they see in each other that annoys them is the very thing that they don't like about themselves. So over time, their relationship has grown and become a really good one. But to begin with, I could see this conflict where they just didn't like things about each other, but when they reflected it, which they both have and processed, there were things about themselves that they didn't like.
What area does this fall into as far as if someone recognised that but maybe needed a professional to work through it with them? Who's the type of person they should be seeking out?
Look, they could go and see a professional. They could go and see a some form of counsellor if that's what it is for them. They could go see an NLP practitioner. Even if they just talk to one of their closest confidants, it doesn't have to be someone with a professional background. It's just to get someone else's opinion. And usually the people that you love and trust the most, when you identify something within yourself and you have the confidence of them and you talk about it, they're the ones that will be the most honest with you.
How do you use this within work situations and management? I mean, have you ever had to address this issue within a workplace?
Funnily enough, this is one of the biggest issues in a workplace, and it's in almost every workplace. The challenge that I've found is when I work with management is getting them to identify it to begin with so that we can start putting systems and structures into the business. But, you look at the people you work with, we don't usually have a choice of the colleagues that we get. So you're thrown into an environment with people that you will or won't get on with. And a lot of the times, you've got the pressure and the tension of the workplace, but most people fall into that emotional reaction where they just don't get on with that person, or they're going to ignore this one, or will just conflict and debate everything that the other person puts up just because that's a habit that we form, rather than sitting back and looking at the actual behaviour. Why does their behaviour annoy you? And how do you relate that back to yourself? Because at the end of the day, it is about you. It's not about the other person. But our society and our conditioning, we go about turning that around. It's all about somebody else. They've got issues. It's their problem. It's their fault. Blame, blame. What that does, though, is it hides the truth from yourself. At the end of the day, all we're doing is lying to ourselves. Whether we do or we don't, there's no judgment there. But people get frustrated. And what happens is if you don't start to deal with your issues, you might leave that job and go to another job, a whole new group of colleagues, but you'll find that happens again and again and it repeats itself. Whether it's in your professional, personal relationships, at the end of the day, the common denominator is you. So it's looking at what are these issues and dealing with it. And we're all in the same boat. Every one of us has issues to deal with. So it's not like you'll be exercised for that. It's something that we all have, but it's identifying it, acknowledging it, and working it out through with yourself. And like we said, talking about it with people that you trust or professional people, just to clarify it in your head. And you'll find once you deal with that, those people and the issues that you thought were theirs will no longer annoy you because you've dealt with it within yourself.